For nearly 37 years, she was known only as Julie Doe, a nameless victim lost in the woods of Lake County, Florida. No identity, no answers, no justice. Until March 10, 2025, when modern science and quiet determination finally gave her back her name and restored her humanity. This is the story of Pamela Leigh Walton, once Julie Doe, and the extraordinary journey from nameless victim to human being remembered. On a humid September day in 1988, a passerby stopped in Florida's Green Swamp in Claremont. Searching for cypress wood, he stumbled on a mystery. Covered in decay, the body of a woman lay off a quiet forest road, with no ID, no name, no history. The medical examiner placed her age between 22 and 35. She wore a blue-green tank top and acid-washed denim skirt. Pantyhose were pulled down, signs of trauma and violation. Authorities believed she died from homicide, but crucial details were missing. Her identity was lost. She became known not as a person, but Julie Doe. Law enforcement released sketches of what Julie might have looked like. Blonde hair, manicured nails, about 5'10". The initial autopsy did more than describe her physical form. It found breast implants, healed fractures in the cheekbone, nose, rib, and pitting in the pelvis that suggested childbirth. All signs pointed to a cisgender woman, yet like fog wrapped around clues, the truth remained obscured. Over the years, Julie Doe's case froze, a single folder on an investigator's shelf. Biology suggested she was cisgender, but no one knew who she was. No missing person matched her. No family cried out for her return. It seemed the world forgot her, until the internet changed everything. In 2019, Lake County authorities reached out to the DNA Doe Project, a volunteer-driven team hunting nameless victims using genetic genealogy. First, bones were tested. Scientists extracted DNA. Then volunteers traced family trees, chasing distant cousins through databases like GED Match. But every lead carried obstacles: adoption, distant relatives, encrypted data, and one critical roadblock: her adoption record was sealed. Each dead end threatened to end the chase. Then came hope. March 10, 2025. After 36 years, investigators announced a name: Pamela Leigh Walton. The woman formerly called Julie Doe was born male, adopted as a boy named Lee Allen Walton, and later transitioned to Pamela Leigh. She had breast implants placed before 1985, cheek and nose surgery, and lived a life alone, untold, until forensic science spoke her story. She finally had her name back. Imagine losing your identity not just in death, but in life. Pamela's adopted family had broken away from her. She was never reported missing. DNA revealed not only her identity, but fragments of her identity. Her transition, her geography from Kentucky to Florida, her choices, her privacy, and her courage. But the cause of her death, still unknown. Her murderer, still at large. The case wasn't just scientific, it carried a heavy human weight. The Transdo Task Force recognized the injustice in using Pamela's dead name and urged her proper identity be honored. Their advocacy faced resistance online. Meta removed their posts 3 times over anti-trans concerns, signals of a world still struggling with her truth. But the DNA Doe Project refused to give up. Nearly 50 volunteers spent over 2,000 hours rebuilding her identity brick by brick. They told Lake County, "She matters. We refuse to let you forget." With her name returned, the search for answers continues. What happened to Pamela between July and September 1988? Who knew her? Who missed her? Authorities are asking for help. They need anyone who remembers a tall woman in Florida, perhaps on hormones or with documents in her adopted name. Each tip could bring closure. On June 16, 1978, the end of the school year brought relief, but for 26-year-old English teacher Diane Peterson, it brought tragedy. Found wounded in her Branham High School hallway, she would not survive. Nearly 47 years later, in June 2025, investigators finally named her killer, almost half a century after her death. This is the story of Diane Peterson, the classroom turned crime scene, and a secret that stayed silent for decades. Diane was more than a teacher. She was a mentor, loved by students, respected by colleagues. The summer break had just begun, but she stayed behind to help prepare classmates for finals. The end of the school year was near, and so was her final day. On that Saturday morning, a student arrived for tutoring and made a chilling discovery. Diane lying in the corridor with a single, fatal stab wound to the chest. She staggered nearly 70 yards across campus, calling for help before collapsing. Teachers rushed in, attempted CPR, but Diane died soon after arriving at the hospital. Who would target a teacher on the first day of summer break? Authorities quickly created a composite sketch from eyewitness accounts of a young man last seen carrying a knife reading "Teacher Dear." That man was identified as 16-year-old Harry "Nicky" Nickerson, but evidence was thin. Witness stories conflicted, memories faded, and despite the chilling sketch, investigators lacked proof, so no charges were filed. For nearly 5 decades, years turned to decades. Nickerson faced other charges, armed robbery, kidnapping, and drug offenses, but no one ever circled back to the Peterson case. In 1993, Nickerson died by suicide, and the case lost momentum again. Diane's family continued to grieve, hope dimming as time passed. In 2023 to 2024, a modern cold case review began. Evidence was dusted for DNA, even though none had been previously identified. Investigators reached out to witnesses and Nickerson's family, hoping someone held the missing piece. In early 2025, everything changed. A family member told police that Nickerson had confessed just minutes after the murder. He allegedly carried that same knife marked "Teacher Dear." That confession, 47 years after Diane's death, shattered the silence. On June 2, 2025, the Santa Clara County District Attorney publicly confirmed Nickerson as Diane's killer. A cousin shared the heartbreaking detail. Nickerson told them he acted after Diane caught him dealing drugs. While he will never stand trial, Diane's family finally heard the name, the story, and the truth. They described Diane as a beautiful person, loved and deeply missed. California law has no statute of limitations for murder, even after 47 years. November 30, 2010, nestled in South Salt Lake, Utah, a small bookstore quietly closed for the night. But when Earl Black, co-owner and husband, returned, he found his wife, Sherry, lying lifeless among the shelves. She was their heart, their partner, and that evening would change everything. Sherry was more than a bookseller. She was a devoted wife, a loving mother and grandmother, a caring presence in her community. Born in 1946, she grew up in Utah, married Earl in 1965, and together they built B&W Billiards and Books, a haven for rare and used books. Friends remember her warmth, her generosity, how she taught children about animals, hosted reading sessions, and became a pillar for so many families. It was November 30th, 2010 at 1:43 p.m. When Earl entered, he saw Sherry's body in the stockroom, brutally beaten and stabbed multiple times. There was no forced entry, no obvious motive, no immediate suspects. Detective Ben Pender would later say the violence was rarely seen, and the killer moved through her life in shadows, taking her without a trace of reason. Locals held vigils. A $250,000 reward was raised. But as weeks turned into years, frustration grew. Earl described the pain of unanswered questions, and Heidi Miller, Sherry's daughter, shared that even the quietest night brought echoes of loss. "It's still out there," she said. "Every time you re-engage, it takes you back to that dark place." In 2010, evidence was sent for DNA and fingerprint testing, but it didn't match any database. Fast forward to 2018 when Detective Pender took over. Inspired by advancements in genetic phenotyping and genetic genealogy, he brought in Parabon nanolabs. It took until late 2020, after searching Getty Match and contacting distant relatives, for them to name a suspect, Adam Antonio Spencer Durbarow. On October 10, 2020, police arrested Durbarow at work. Through a cheek swab or a discarded cup, they confirmed his DNA matched blood, fingerprints, and skin cells at the crime scene. Within days, he confessed to the murder and later pleaded guilty, receiving a life sentence without parole. Detective Pender later noted, without investigative genetic genealogy, this case would still be open. In March 2023, the Utah legislature passed the Sherry Black Bill, allowing regulated access to genealogy databases for violent crime investigations. Its passage honored Sherry's memory and ensured future families have a chance at answers. Heidi Miller said, "Never give up hope. Give yourself permission to feel all the feels." Family friend John Massacre also reflected, "Time heals, but a person like Sherry can't be replaced." Sherry Black's case is a powerful reminder that even after a decade, justice is possible. It's proof that genetic genealogy, combined with unwavering persistence, can bring answers to the darkest mysteries. Her story isn't just about DNA, it's about love, loss, and the enduring belief that every life deserves closure. On a spring morning in 2013, 86-year-old Una Crown was found murdered just a few steps from her home in rural England. A quiet, respected woman stabbed in her own home was shocking enough. For years, the community held its breath. Was it a stranger's rage? A social care failure? And when investigators finally connected a suspect by DNA in early 2025, the world watched as a decades-old question was at last answered. This is the story of Una Crown, whose death would tear a village apart and whose memory would eventually lead to justice. Una Crown was more than a number in a crime file. She was a lifelong friend, community member, and doting widow. She spent her days caring for her cat, chatting with neighbors, and volunteering at local charity events. March 28, 2013, a day that started like any other, but by midday, Una was found inside her own home in Blueberry, Oxfordshire. What seemed like a routine welfare check spiraled into tragedy as the paramedics discovered she had been stabbed multiple times. The crime shocked the town. How could someone attack Una, so frail, so trusting, in her living room? Detectives arrived swiftly. The crime scene was meticulously processed, but there were no signs of a forced entry. A distinctive length of cord was found nearby, but no DNA and no eyewitnesses. Residents locked their doors. The sense of safety they once felt around Una's home was gone. Was it a burglary gone wrong, or something much darker? For nearly 2 years, every clue went cold. The identity of the attacker remained a mystery. No arrests, no public theories or suspect sketches. Then the case was quietly shelved, becoming one of hundreds of unsolved murders in England, known only in closed files and the hushed worry of neighbors. In 2024, as DNA technology advanced, investigators retested the evidence under the Home Office's National Cold Case Review. The cord was swabbed again, sent for new testing, and produced a match. In February 2025, 62-year-old Norman Thompson, a former associate of Una's, known to have visited before, was arrested for the murder. A suspect whom she thought she knew, whose DNA finally spoke after all these years. During the trial in Oxford Crown Court, the evidence was straightforward. The DNA matched Thompson, and CCTV footage caught him near Una's home that morning. He pleaded guilty to manslaughter on grounds of diminished responsibility, citing untreated mental health issues. On March 12, 2025, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. For the Crown family and neighbors, the verdict was bittersweet. It wasn't full justice, but it was the truth they'd waited years to hear. Thank you for staying with us on this journey through one of the most disturbing true stories. We'd love to hear your ideas in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to new mysteries, hidden secrets, and riveting true crime stories every week. Until next time, be curious, safe, and continue to question the story.